booties for black girl nerds.
Zendaya, starting with you, do you think Chani, as Paul and her are tethered together more closely in their relationship, that it adversely affects the decisions that she makes?
That's interesting. I think the whole time she's battling with that very thing. I think her heart is saying one thing, but her mind is saying something else. And I think that, for at least for me as an actress, was the most exciting part to dig out and find, because everything is conflicting. Every moment of intimacy or of her letting her guard down, I think comes with a lot of, I mean, it takes a lot for her to open up even the slightest bit, right? Because she is a literal warrior, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think every moment that she decides to trust him, there's weight to that, you know, which ultimately, without giving anything away, you know, she has to deal with those consequences of like of whatever that trust ends up looking like, and those things can be painful when you feel like you've opened your heart to someone. So yeah, I think that's just constantly the battle is happening in her head, and I think it causes a lot of emotional turmoil for her.
Which you did very well.
Thanks.
Yeah, great face watching.
I was like, I don't have to say anything. We don't have to say anything, but you gotta
beautiful
feel
face.
it.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Florence, speaking of choices, the princess is very measured and methodical in the choices that she makes. Is that something she takes after her father, or is that a skill that she's had to learn on her own?
I think a bit of both. I think she's definitely someone that has been trained since birth to live up to her dad, and she's been given all of the resources and all of the teachers and all of the skills, and obviously, you know, Mother Mahayam has been training her as well since I presume since birth as well, right. Which makes her quite a powerful woman, but she's also probably got her own tricks as well, and I think like they're very kind of goes against each other because she's been withheld information and to protect her and to save her, and I think it's then up to her to try and find out what's going on, and she's always aware of what's going on in the room. She's always listening. She's very calculated, and I really enjoyed that aspect of reading it in the script and then also getting to do it, because you don't expect that she's gonna bite.
Right.
It never. You never
That's
think
why I'm
it's gonna happen.
excited,
Yeah.
you know, for her future. Because I'm curious to know.
And how that's gonna, and
What
also
she's
all the
gonna
things
do.
that she's learned. Like,
Yeah.
how is that gonna play in? Yeah, it's very exciting.
Absolutely. Zendaya, Chani is very confident and she seems to know who she is. We don't often see that kind of confidence in female characters in genre films. Where does that self-esteem come from?
I don't know. I think what, like, we were talking about this earlier, but what Denny has done, which I appreciate with the female characters in these films, is they are dynamic, right? So it's not just strong female characters, but they are complex and dynamic, and sometimes we love them, sometimes we hate them, sometimes we feel seen by them, sometimes they're vulnerable and intimate, and then other times they're terrifying and and overpowering, you know. So there's so many different ways we get to see these female characters shine, and I personally appreciate that, because it's never just one kind of strong female character, right? I think there's a lot of dynamic to it, and I appreciated that. Even with finding Chani, I didn't want her to just feel like she's just has to be tough for the sake of being tough all the time. I think she, like anyone, is a human being, and she feels like anyone else. And I think that it's important for her to be able to feel and be able to be terrified or sad or not always, you know, strong.
I love how reactive she is as well. And I love how like untethered you've made, like she's bursting in like all these different ways, whether it's with love, with passion, with fighting, like everything just feels like she's a very full person.
I appreciate
and
that.
It's like wonderful.
I
to
feel like
watch.
that's why I'm excited for these characters to be around each other, because your character is literally so composed.
They are.
And thoughtful.
They've lived completely different lives.
So it'll be interesting to see what happens there.
Fingers crossed.
And I can't wait for the rest of the audience to see this film. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to Black Girl Nerds. Really appreciate it.
Lovely chatting to you.
Take care.
Wonderful to see you.
Your character this time around seems like he's falling apart at the seams. And he can't quite keep himself together. Right. Is it an ego thing, or is he losing control of what's getting the best of him?
I think he's losing control. I think I think inherently, Robot's not very smart. He's very insecure. He covers up that by, outbursts of rage and anger, and he's a bully. And I think that he knows that he's losing control, and I think it's tearing him apart.
What's worse for Beast being challenged by, or what's worse for Beast, being challenged by a complete stranger or someone that's a part of his own community?
Oh, definitely a part of his own community. Especially little brother.
Yeah.
I think there's always been that rivalry because I think Fayed has always been better at everything than Raban. And I think this is like he's gotten his one opportunity to really prove himself. And he's, I'm not going to say it. He's I almost gave a spoiler.
Yeah.
Not going to do
Careful.
it. And he's, but I think that's it. He's just, I think he's more competitive. I think with anybody. I think he could deal with competitiveness with anybody better than he could his little brother.
You've mentioned in press notes how Denis always challenges you the best way that he can. In what ways did he challenge you in this film differently than he did in part one?
Oh, a lot of different ways because the character was just so much more layered. He's he really didn't see much of Raban in the first film, and you saw a little bit. But in this one, you really see layers of him and his, with him being a coward and a bully and just a psychopath and insecure, and you see him losing control, and he's a bit of a drunk. So it's just so many layers to play with. So it was, just a lot of different challenges because the character was just more fleshed out, was more developed.
There's so many great moments in this film, and you get to work with so many exceptional actors. Yeah. Is there a scene or a moment that still resonates with you?
I think the scene where, I'll answer this, but it's a little bit of a spoiler, but I think the scene where Raban has to kiss Fayed's boot. I love that scene. I love that scene. And a lot of people might think, God, that must have been so awful. And I was like, I was in my element, man, because it just felt like there was so much to process while that was going on. You really see how you almost feel like a little bit of sympathy for Raban. Even though he's such a disgusting character, but it really just shows how it was just it's so pathetic, and I really love that because it just gave me that opportunity to just really, really perform.
Do you have to get into a certain state of mind, getting into the psyche of that scene? Because that is a very hard scene to even watch.
Yeah. No, it didn't really have any mental preparation. I think I was already just so into the character by the time we started filming because we had conversations before we started. So I knew what it was. I knew who Raban was. I knew that he was a coward, and I knew he was being put in his place, and that's how I looked at it. As now you're seeing, at that moment, you're really seeing who Raban is, and he is just such a loathsome coward, and he's just been put in his place. So I kind of relished in it.
You have this very antagonistic relationship with Austin's character. Yeah. How did you guys kind of get to know each other offset to really prep for playing these kind of characters?
It's I don't know what his preparation for playing Fayed was, but all I can say is we had the most fun conversations right before we hated each other. And so it wasn't we were friendly. A lot of just friendly banter back and forth before filming, so it's not like we had to keep our distance or we were looking at each other sideways or we were talking deeply about the scenes and conversations. It was like we were in and out of it. I think because we were so comfortable with each other. I can only speak for myself, but I was very comfortable with Austin. I have a lot of respect for Austin, so I just felt like super at ease with him. And no, I just felt comfortable. It didn't feel anything but comfortable.
Well, incredible work. Really enjoyed watching you in this, and thank you for taking the time to talk to Top Film Nerds. Take care.
Better shake your booties for black girl nerves. Better shake your booties for black girl nerves.